Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest in the PhD Research video podcast series. And I'm delighted that we're joined today by Alaeddine Boutamine from Hanchla in eastern Algeria. And Alaeddine is a second year student on the International Structured PhD program here at the University of Limerick. So Alaeddine, you're very, very welcome today. Delighted that you're with us. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you and to hearing more about your research and about your background and about the kind of work you're undertaking at the moment here at UL.
Hi, Jared. Thanks for having me. So my name is Alaeddine Boutamine. I'm an Algerian PhD student at the University of Limerick. I've studied for 5 years in Hanchla University. I've studied English language and culture. I have then decided to go with a PhD in a structured PhD here at the University of Limerick. My area of academic inquiry is critical discourse analysis and the representation and construction of immigrants and ethnic minorities, ethnic groups in American and European public discourse. So I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, excellent, good. And just in terms of your interest in your PhD, where did your interest in your PhD come from, Alaeddine? And and what made you choose to do a PhD? Even what was the motivation behind that?
I think the major motivation for me was that I always admired the empirical process and the sort of scientific process, the systematic nature of academic inquiry. So I always find it admirable how we can identify real world problems and find solutions to them through research. That has always been fascinating to me, and I think it was a great motivation for me to choose to do a PhD. It is also a very morally rewarding and uplifting experience to be able to surround yourself with people from the academic community who are brilliant individuals and from whom you learn so much.
Excellent. And in terms of doing a PhD, we can certainly see your motivations for doing a doctorate, but why the University of Limerick for your PhD, Alaeddine?
Yeah, so when the Algerian ministry, who is funding my scholarship and my cohort scholarships, when we first heard that the contract was signed with the University of Limerick, I looked it up online. I heard of it before, but I really didn't have the nitty-gritty, the details of it. So I remember looking up Glucksman Library, and I was really impressed with the storage system of the data they have of the corpora they have in the library, just the great publications and the system they have, the interlibrary loan system. Just found that online, and that really helped lead my decision in that direction. It sort of certainly weighed in favor of me going with a PhD at the University of Limerick. Also, Dr. Moriarty and Professor Holmes visited us back home in Algeria. That was in 2020, and for 5 days, I got a glimpse of a really admirable level of professionalism, and I saw promising prospects in doing a PhD at the University of Limerick, and so I went with it.
Excellent. No, and it's great that you're here, and delighted to have you here. And so could you tell us, just in terms of, say, a typical day, doing your PhD? And I know you said that you began your doctorate in 2020, so that would have been when you were based in Algeria at the beginning of the soon after the beginning, or sorry, that would have been around the time of the beginning of the pandemic, I suppose. So could you tell us how your working day has shifted in emphasis since you came to Limerick, Alaeddine?
So, as you rightly said, Gerard, the beginning of our program coincided with the worldwide pandemic. So we couldn't travel to Ireland last year. We had to study online. Of course, back then we had a taught components, so we had to study modules and also try and narrow down the focus of our PhD. Try to arrive at precise questions and tackle specific problems. So I think a regular day for me hasn't really changed that much. What I would usually do is I'm a morning person, a morning bird. I usually spend 3 to 4 hours in the morning on something I call academic effort. So whether it is reading, writing, trying to get into as many workshops, as many conferences, webinars, training as I can, trying to submit as many abstracts as I can. So I call this the general effort, but it is mainly thesis writing. So what I would do is spend 3 to 4 hours in the morning doing that, take a break for a couple of hours, do whatever, go for a walk, maybe grab some lunch, get back in the afternoon, spend 2 to 3 hours also on the same process.
So that's excellent, Alaeddine. So could you describe a time? I know I'm very conscious that, as you said, you began your research last year, but has there been any occasion so far in your doctorate where you have encountered a problem or a challenge? And could you tell us how you approached that, or what steps you took to mitigate that problem or challenge in your PhD? In the context of research, not necessarily anything to do with the pandemic. So,
of course, yeah. So as you know, problems and challenges are part and parcel of any research and of any thesis, and we can only do so much. We can only mitigate them, but we cannot totally avoid them. So something that comes to mind is something I can recall very vividly. Is I was writing this section on Irish immigration policy just this last spring semester, and I really suffered a lack of sources. There was I didn't have a sufficient amount of sources, and I was trying to squeeze every source that I have into as much review as I can write in the thesis. What I thought I'd do in response to that is through the reasoning that basically immigration policy is law, I decided to go to the law section, which Glucksman Library has a good selection of, a good collection of. So I went up there and found books and pamphlets containing statutes and laws. They were sort of immediate and not really what you would describe as research discussion, but I had to make do, and I had to use them, review them myself. I also asked for the help of my supervisors. I have two brilliant supervisors, Professor Haynes and Dr. Vaughan, and they both were very helpful and suggested that I use the interlibrary loan system, which also Glucksman Library provides for UL students. So I found really good sources, really relevant and also recent in other places, in other universities.
Excellent. Okay. And so in terms of your PhD subject matter, like, it sounds really, really fascinating, Alaeddine. So we hear a lot about impact, and like the impact of the PhD, and you referred earlier, to how research can contribute to helping to solve real world problems. So what would you say for your own PhD, for your own studies? What would you say, or what would you like the impact, or what do you envisage the impact of your own PhD research project? What do you envisage it's going to be?
Well, my research has a critical angle to it. As you know, I'm working on critical discourse analysis, and one of the errands of a critical discourse analyst is uncovering any patterns of discrimination, unequal power relations, or racism as manifested in language and discourse. And so I believe that's a degree of social commitment that I hope my research will be able to contribute to. I also, by analyzing and understanding the Irish discourse on immigration, how politicians in Ireland perceive and construct immigrants in their discourses, particularly in the last 5 years, I hope to offer insights into the relationship between Irish society and immigrant communities, but also generally host societies and immigrant communities in general. I also wish to provide a better understanding, or perhaps different angle to look at the recent rise of right-wing politics we can see in many places in Europe and the United States. The election of President Trump, the Brexit vote, the rise of the right-wing parties like UKIP and Le Front National in France. It seems to be a pattern, and perhaps a closer look at a different context, say the Irish context in my example, can potentially offer insights into understanding the appeal of these movements.
Excellent. And you said there about has the discourse changed politically in the last, you mentioned the last 5 years? Is there a reason for that? Is that to do with Brexit and Trump and with all these other factors with Front National and Fidesz and other parties on the rise, right-wing populist parties on the rise? Alaeddine?
Yeah, of course, right or generally far-right parties are endemically anti-immigration and hostile to immigration. And anti-immigration sentiments and discourses have always existed. But I believe in the last 5 years, the second decade, the second half of the last decade, there was this rise of these sentiments to the mainstream. You have the President of the United States basically perpetuating a vulgar, offensive discourse, offensive to many ethnic groups, offensive to many religious groups. And so it's not really those sort of discursive patterns themselves, but their rise to mainstream politics. Also, in the case of Britain, Brexit, the rhetoric of the British Prime Minister,
Yeah, so in terms of like impact, so it has very much contemporary overtones, your research, and how it can, assess and if you like critically analyze the rise of these particular movements throughout Europe, these populist and anti-immigrant movements. So that sounds really, really intriguing, Alaeddine. And I would ask, just the next question would be about, just in terms of, say, after looking at impact and after looking at, say, your whole doctorate and post-graduation, but where would you see yourself in terms of, say, careers, after graduating? We hear a lot about, that the PhD is no longer a guaranteed pathway to an academic career. But would an academic career be your aspiration after graduation?
I generally don't want to appear too confident or overconfident, but I believe that I should try and get into publishing. After the PhD, I will try to publish as much as I can and investigate other worthwhile problems. Always keep this academic effort. I view this academic effort not as a temporary commitment for the PhD, but rather as a continuous, ongoing personal passion, really. Of course, it would be very hard to get a professor degree. It would require a monumental amount of effort and dedication, but I will certainly do my best to that end.
Excellent. And could I just ask you, in terms of, say, doing a doctorate, how would you see, or what would you see as the advantages of doing a doctorate compared to, say, a career outside of academia, you know, for someone with your qualifications at the moment?
Well, I think that the most obvious advantage of doing a PhD rather than going with a career is the kind of people you surround yourself with and you find. So in the academic community, as I said previously, you find really brilliant individuals from whom you can learn so much. And it is also about the personal preference. I believe that when you do something about which you are very, about which you feel strongly, and you know, you don't feel forced in doing, I believe that the outcomes and the ramifications of that are very fruitful and very rewarding to you personally.
Great.
Also, I think, sorry.
No, please continue.
I think also career prospects and job prospects are significantly enhanced after doing a PhD.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And just in terms of the last question I think I have, Alaeddine, would be just about what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of doing a PhD? Not necessarily a PhD at the University of Limerick, but just somebody who's thinking of doing a PhD anywhere in the world. What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, well, what I would advise is sort of build on my last point and say that try to go with something you personally like, something you feel strongly about or you feel passionate about. You know, to phrase it in another way, try to do something for PhD, something you would look up for fun or for personal pleasure. In my case, for instance, I'm intrigued and constantly fascinated by political discourse and the sort of injustices and discrimination, unequal power relations found constantly in discourse. I think that is very fascinating, and I would look it up even if I weren't doing it for a PhD. So what I would also say is have a full understanding that the PhD process is a long and challenging process, but also have the confidence that it is perfectly doable and believe in your ability to do it. Of course, given the right amount of commitment and hard work.
Yeah, that's great. That's top class advice. So, Alaeddine, I'll just say it was a great pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Really fantastic to get your insights into your research. I know it's at a relatively early stage, but it sounds like it's really, really going to go well. And it sounds like you have just a clear pathway devised, you know, from here until graduation. So I think I'm sure you'll have a fantastic career thereafter, but I'll just wish you for now the very, very best of luck in your research here at the University of Limerick, and all the very best in your future career. So thank you very much for contributing to the PhD research video podcast series. It's made a great contribution to the playlist that we already have. So thank you very much, Alaeddine.
Thank you so much, Gerard. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to talk to you. So thanks, Alaeddine.
Thank
See you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.